Welcome in, guys, to another Walking Dead Road to Survival podcast. This is your boy JustCMTexx, and today I have a special podcast. And in this podcast, we are talking with some of the members of the winning faction of War of Champions. We have some of Eternal Origins players here to discuss the victory and things that happened during War of Champions. So I'm gonna let them go ahead and introduce themselves before we get into it.
I'm Justin, in game known as Jay, and one of the leads for EO.
Hi, I'm Renee. I also go in game by Renee. I think for a few years now. I'm also one of the leads in Eternal Origins.
Man, it's good to have you guys. I had OJ. I spoke with OJ about it and everything a couple days ago, and he's was really excited about the W in War of Champions. You guys actually went undefeated, which is a very impressive feat. We know walkers have been at the top for some years now. So I just wanted to go over what were some of your thoughts headed into War of Champions.
Yeah, and I'm sure OJ was pumped. He was excited all weekend, as was everybody, to be honest. Yeah, man, it's crazy to think about. I think when we were heading into it, we've been doing this for several months. We got together 6-7 months ago with kind of this purpose in mind, and wanted to change things up. We had gone through a couple Wars of Champions with coming in second and third for both Immortals and A and B, and we knew the potential was there. We were getting some wins off of walkers, but they were still just so dominant. So we decided to make that move, and this was kind of our whole purpose, whole goal. So we were still probably a bit nervous. Definitely had some confidence going in. A lot of practice, a lot of duels, a lot of discussions and team building and strategies, and just a lot of work put into it, especially testing different strategies and ways that we could outperform or outscore, not just in head-to-heads, but also just points accumulation. So just really a lot of testing leading up to it. But yeah, if I had to say, a little bit, we'll call about 20% nerves and 80% confidence. We were as prepared as we could be.
Yeah, especially to me, it felt like the kind of work leading up to it, or especially when you're in the leads group, you have to manage everything. That was maybe almost more work than the walk itself in the end. And yeah, like Jay said, we tested different strategies during the qualifiers, like different hit orders, different things, and looked like what was scoring the most points on average. How were we like comparing to others? And yeah, I think like you also said, I think in the past walk, especially the last one, we already saw like I think we both A and B and Immortals before got kind of a read that it was definitely possible to beat walkers, but we're like in all those past walks very much focused on fighting each other for like second or third place or something, and we knew like it wasn't really gonna work otherwise. So I think like to just merge like we did and focus on having this head-to-head competition, which we definitely didn't know we would certainly win at the end. But yeah, like I said, there was a lot of time going into it. I think walk was also a bit delayed. Like we thought it would come a bit sooner initially when we merged based on the like difference between walk 3 and 4. But yeah, that just gave us a bit more time to prepare, I think, and maybe played in our favor.
Yeah,
Be a
that's
little tricky too, because I'm just thinking you're right. That took it was like 2-3 months in. We were expecting Walk to show up, and so trying to keep everybody aligned and maintain that level of excitement. Because when we first got together, it was we're gonna do this, we're gonna smash, and months go by. It was definitely
and then we
having to keep
merged
everybody
and
motivated.
yeah, and we merged, and then there was like a few months of nothing, like no information from Scopely when what
Yeah,
would actually happen. So, and we we're like, okay, they first said it would happen like every 3 or 4 months, and then there was like no info whatsoever at the beginning. But yeah, I think we
yeah.
managed
Did
to
we
keep
do this?
everybody on board.
Yeah,
Yeah, like, did we do this and then it's not going to happen? Like, yeah, I remember that.
yeah, I remember reading in the forums, and people were like, "Hey, what's going on with Walk? We haven't heard any word." And me, I'm on the other side, so talking with Scopely and people behind the scenes, they really do in certain areas listen to feedback, and I guess the feedback of Walk is special. It shouldn't be 4 or 5 times a year. It should be 2, 3. They kind of took that into play and thought about it, and I believe that's the reason why Walk was pushed back, because we supposed to have 2 of them, leading up to this point. So that's was one of those areas where I can say that they did kind of adjust to fix that. But it seems like that adjustment did work out in you all's favor as well too, because you had your setups, you had more time to prepare. You guys were definitely hitting them. I on the back end, I'm receiving messages and stuff from people in your faction showing the scores, and I'm like, these guys is crushing it. Like, what happened? And it's just the excitement. You always root for the underdog. I'm an underdog guy. I root for the underdog, and I have some friends that was in your factions and still in your faction that I definitely wanted to see them prevail and do well. Just a change of scenery on the war board, where we're now gonna see Eternal Origins on the wall. Like just thinking of that. And then the weapon's gonna be named at the Eternal Origins. Like,
However, they will fit that in
yeah,
in the
man,
smaller
that's
icon.
it's nuts. So just like that, that capacity, and just seeing that was actually a good thing and everything. So the next question that I have, it interesting enough. Okay, what gave you guys the indication that the walkers had a chink in their armor?
Well, I think I kind of went into that a little bit before, but I think like the thought processes were kind of starting in last walk, so the one before this one, walk 4, where I think like on the second day, although like it's only to some extent comparable to this one, because that one had like the crazy tower points, so matches were usually decided by who would take towers first. But still, like we saw that both A and B and Immortus with like the right people in queue were able to take matches from walkers. So, and that was something like the walk before, like we weren't really going for that, but also we were like focused on the matchup against A and B in Immortus, since I was a former Immortus player. So, but we saw like they were probably beatable, and then also we had kind of this feeling that for 2 walks in a row we had kind of the same scoreboard, like walkers first, Immortus second, and close behind A and B in third, which could have gone either way really. So I also thought like it gets a little bit stale, so we are really like motivated to try to change something, go for that first place. For a lot of people in our faction was also the first time to win a walk. So yeah, I think it started from there, and then during the qualifiers we saw that given the right strategies we could keep up with walkers on like scoring wise, like average points per war scored, and we could definitely like we definitely had the players to take matches of them. So we thought, yeah, it's possible if we get everybody on board, and we don't have to look like towards our back all the time, like for a close matchup with third place, for example. So we could really focus on that matchup. We knew we had a good chance.
I would agree, and I think if we could have taken 40, 50 players, we would have. We had a lot of strong players in both, but really we knew taking the top half of each. I mean, there's so much talent in both of those factions. It was we needed something to change, and that was really the best change I think that could be made in the game to give us the best chance to beat walkers, because they were just so strong for so long. But I also think that it, in some cases can make things a little harder for them, because they are used to being at the top, and not having true competition. So I think bringing that to them surprised them a bit for sure. I'll also say in the qualifiers with point scoring, that was a big area of focus. Like I mentioned a little bit before, the head-to-heads are of course going to matter, but overall point accumulation throughout the war is almost more important than the head-to-heads. And the strategies that we would try, some of them failed miserably. Some of them went better than others. All of it, had its ups and downs with communication and making sure everybody's on board. And a ton of work, like Renee said, for the leads to be on almost all weekend, every qualifier, to push these new strategies out, get rid of the flops, move forward with the ones that did well. But I think in those qualifiers, we saw where we started to pull ahead from walkers on overall points throughout the weekend, and then we're able to do that consistently. I think it was over the last 2 or 3 qualifiers, we outscored them in points. So we knew that our overall strategy was a good one, so that kind of gave us some indication there too.
Yeah, it was I remember as a walk was going on, I was watching the top of the scoreboard, and I saw you guys up there. And I remember after your first match with walkers, I saw how much you guys scored. And then it became apparent after a while, it was 1 victory, then 2, then another one, that you guys really had a really strong game plan, and it was effective. It was working. So with that being said, when did you guys become assured that, okay, this is working and I think we can actually pull this off? I think we can win this War Champions. What day did that become assured to you? Was it a couple of hours in? Was it a day in? Was it after a couple matches with some of the top elite factions in the game? When did you guys become assured of that victory?
I think for maybe different for you, Renee, but I know we were shooting for, we had different milestones, like let's get 100K, 200K, let's get 500K up. But really, I don't think until we were about 1 million up, where I felt like, okay, like this, we're taking this home. Really confident before then, obviously after each match. But you set those goals for yourself, and walkers can cover a point spread really quickly. And as both Immortals and AMB saw, point swings of 500K plus happened each walk. So not sitting comfortable until I think we were over 1 million up. What do you think, Renee?
I think there was a couple of things, like definitely for the mental. I think the first victory was really important. Although I was personally still asleep then, but I think we knew that walkers would start with probably this, like some of their strongest players at the beginning to get an advantage early. So I think that first victory, where it was pretty much like some of the 8 best players of them versus some of the 8 best players of us, when we took that victory, and it was a close one, I think, like that was a pretty big moral boost that we could like take them down when they are probably at their strongest. Like you never really know, but I think that was like the first one, and like I think the first 12 hours were relatively close, and you would get like frustrated if you match like the 2 defense faction and like score a bit less points and so on. But I think during the day, like on Saturday for my time in Europe, we started to pull ahead from them a little bit, and I was there like during that time, and it was like 100K at first, then like 120, and then like Jay said, would like count these things and say like, okay, now let's try to get to like 200K ahead. Let's try to get this much ahead, and then when we matched them and beat them again, was a little bit more, and then basically we just went on from that and saw that we were kind of outscoring them a little bit. I think like if you actually calculate like the average score per match, it's only like a difference of maybe 5, 6, 7,000 per match, but it really adds up over time, and that's how we really accumulated that advantage. It could be really as simple as scoring like 5,000 more points against Biohazard than Walkers, for example, and that really adds up over a long weekend.
Oh, yeah, and then as those milestones popped up, I mean, the excitement was ramping up, people getting more pumped, like it was easier for people to jump on. And when you get rolling like that, it's much
Yeah.
easier to maintain momentum.
Yeah, that is definitely true. And you made a very important point there where, if you think about it, it's like, okay, we scored 3,000 more points, we scored 4,000 more points than them, right? But when you're doing that consistently for 100 wars, that adds up.
Yeah.
It becomes overbearing to where you can't possibly catch up. And that's something that I noticed with some of the top factions, is that you guys are very fast and efficient. Like, you go in, you get through the war, you have great strategy, and it pushes you to be better, especially when you get your first win, your second win. You're building that confidence, and it really helps with the morale. So the last question that I had was, you, these things just don't happen by chance, right? You just don't beat the top of the top without great communication, and not even just beating the top factions within the game. You guys went undefeated, 153 in it.
Yeah.
Like, no losses is amazing to be able to put up when you're facing some of the top 100 factions in a game. To me, that's a major feat. What type of communication do you guys have with that? Don't have to be like specific, but like more morale boosters, making sure people are talking and communicating, strategies and stuff. Well, what type of communication does that need to happen, and synergy that needs to happen for you be able to pull that off?
Well, I think in terms of the strategy, the groundworks were laid during the qualifiers, and that was definitely one of the tough parts. And definitely at the beginning, we were struggling a bit with that, because you have to get everybody like really on top of the strategy, and you have like people from all over the world with a lot of different languages. Some people may use translators and so on. So it's not easy, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end, I think we got everybody really to kind of be able to pull off the strategy and hit orders very naturally. And I think during walk itself, one of the big things was we had a call going on basically nonstop for the whole weekend, and it was always like full of people. Like, I think during the low times it was maybe 10 people, and then could be up to, I don't know, 20 or more. And I think you definitely need a few like strong communicators. You need people who can call, who can make shot calls during matches, like during important matches against walkers, like what to focus on, how to adapt mid-fight. But you also need people like who can motivate. Like, I mean, you already mentioned OJ, like he was like full of energy the whole weekend and kept like pushing people in the call and like
Yeah,
keeping
he's
it
a
up. And we had,
firecracker, man.
yeah, and we had
Yep.
people like playing music and everything. So it's like there's a lot of different roles inside the faction, but I think that was really the main thing. Like that, of course, there's always going to be like people who are in the spotlight, but I think for us, for our faction, a big part was definitely that really the work of everybody. And if you talk about the scoring, that really shows, I think, the difference that everybody was able to really hit in like similar speeds and keep up those points. Because if some aren't able to do that, then you lose out a lot of points in the scoring. So I think this victory is really one of everybody, because those few thousand points more just I think shows that like as a faction, everybody was really strong, and in the end came together to pull this off. But definitely communication, having calls, motivating each other to not lose focus is really, really important for that.
Yeah, I would agree. And the energy level on the call really, really helped, especially for some of us that were, staying up for extended hours. Especially, I think about Ollie and Sav, and they were
Yeah.
up forever. OJ too. That guy just has more energy than most. But they you get to those points where you hit those walls where things start to slow down. Maybe you're not as focused. So having people to talk it out with, But even at other times, being like, all right, I got to step away, like, I'll be right back, guys, and just being open, and having somebody there that can, jump in and pick that up and go with it, is really helpful. And I would say there was two sides. There was the phone, and then there was in-game, and that was one of the things that we got much better on as we went through the qualifiers was in-game chat, right? So keeping that clear, making sure that everybody knew to check and keep checking and communicate there if they couldn't be on call, or even if they could jump on and listen, that'd be great, but some couldn't jump on at all. So in-game chat, we still had to manage both. That's where we really did well between both sides of it, just being on call as well as in-game.
Yeah. And like people who weren't maybe people who were in reserves during an important match would help, like call for certain targets, like call if someone's repairing or when to go for towers and so on. So there's a lot of different roles that people can take in terms of communication.
Yeah, there was like long stretches where like Dreddy would hop on and wouldn't be in match, but would just be on call and just calling out matches as we went. And that was just a way to contribute without being in queue at that point. Really, really helpful.
Yeah, and definitely like since despite maybe walkers were on top for a long time, I think we still had like a lot of experienced players who went to multiple walks and played in top factions for a long time and who really knew how to win something like this.
Yeah. You guys definitely had some of those top players as well too, and it's just interesting to see the success that you were able to have, and hopefully in the future be able to duplicate now that you got because everybody's coming after you now, right? Yeah, you got you guys at the top of the mountain hill, you know what I mean? Everybody's coming after you. I'm a big WWE fan, so you're the king of the hill, you know what I mean? King of the ring. Yeah. I mean, so that's actually a good thing, man, that you guys were able to pull that off. This has been great. I hope to be able to have these more in the future, just so that our audience can be able to get some of the other side from some of the top guys in the game. And I definitely appreciate you guys' time. Do you have any last words, any last thoughts before we go ahead and end it?
I think for me, I'm just pumped. Like this walk, definitely feels a bit different afterward. What, of course, I'm going to say that when you win, but the last couple, still getting second and third. I mean, that's really awesome to end that high. But you still walked away feeling, that you lost really by not ending higher. So. Yeah, I feel amazing. I think the faction feels absolutely amazing. Everybody's still riding that high even now. It's up to us to make a repeat.
Yeah, same for me. It was a little bit disappointing that we couldn't match walkers more often to have a few more matches, which I think was largely due to that Scopely reduced the retreat timers a lot, and I think like a lot of the other factions were kind of retreating against us and walkers a lot of the time. So our match times were often like similar durations, and we couldn't. At times, I think at the end we tried to find them, but couldn't really like sync our search times at all. It was really difficult because everybody you meet is just like retreating at a certain point, and then you couldn't really make matches go any faster or slower. So, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. We're wondering how they're going to pull off the weapon name and the banner name now. Hope we hear some communication on that in the future.
Yeah, you definitely should be hearing communication on that. I think that's gonna be good too. It's just, and something you guys said earlier that I know that we've been in the player council meetings and stuff like fighting for is for them to make 3 teams mandatory, because to go into a match and then it's only they drop their teams to only 2, it's very infuriating and frustrating. So I definitely understand that. And if you're matching them and somebody else is matching teams that have 3 teams, that can create a very, very wide point differential as well too. So definitely understand that.
Yeah, I remember early on getting those, that we'd get frustrated because that's when walkers would move back into first and we'd trade off. Basically, whoever ended up with that 2 death faction was probably the one that dropped behind for a sec.
Yep, understandable. But yeah, it's been a pleasure. I thank you guys for stopping by the Dead Talk podcast. This your boy JustCMTexx. Guys, you know what to do. Hit that like, subscribe, notification bell. Peace.